Hello and welcome to another Sonicwall video tutorial. My name is MG Sriramaya, Senior Tech Support Engineer, Sonicwall. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure CFS with LDAP Authentication. The steps to configure this setup are: create the CFS policies, configure LDAP Authentication settings in the Sonicwall, import the LDAP user groups required for CFS enforcement and assign them CFS policies, create access rule to force authentication, test the setup. I have logged into the management interface of the Sonicwall and have navigated to the content filter page under Security Services. Click on Configure to open the Sonicwall filter properties window. Enable the checkbox under Enable HTTPS content filtering and enable CFS server failover. Click on the Policy tab. Before we start creating the policies, we must make sure the default policy is the most restrictive. Edit the default policy and click on the URL list tab. Enable the checkbox Select all categories to block all categories. Let us create the teacher's policy. Click on the Add button. Under Policy Name, enter a name for this policy. Let's call it Teacher's Policy. Now click on the URL list tab. For the teachers group, let us allow access to sites in education, search engines and portals, and email categories. Click on the Settings tab. Set the source of the allowed and forbidden domains to per policy. Click on the Custom List tab. The teachers group must be allowed access to Dell.com. So enter Dell.com under allowed domains. And they must be blocked access to Yahoo Mail. Enter mail.yahoo.com under forbidden domains. When multiple CFS policies are configured, to block a website under custom list, it must be entered under both the default policy and the custom policy. Click on Configure under the default policy. On the Settings tab, set the policy's source of allowed and forbidden domains to per policy, and then click on the Custom List tab. In here, enter mail.yahoo.com under forbidden domains. Let us now create the student's policy. Under Policy Name, enter Students Policy and click on the URL list tab. For the students group, we must block all categories except education and email. Click on the Settings tab and set the source to per policy. Now click on the Custom List tab. Let's allow the network computing web page to the students group. So enter www.networkcomputing.com under allowed domains. Now let us block their access to Gmail. Enter accounts.google.com and mail.google.com under forbidden domains. Click on Configure under default policy. In the Custom List tab, enter accounts.google.com and mail.google.com under forbidden domains. We have finished the CFS policies configuration. Now we configure the LDAP server. I have logged into a Windows 2008 server and I'm in the Active Directory Users and Computers Snap-in. Here, I have created a user account to log into the LDAP directory from the Sonicwall LDAP configuration. This can be any account and not necessarily one with administrative privileges. Make a note of the display name of this user. We must enter this name in the Sonicwall LDAP configuration settings. I have created two user groups. One is Teachers Group and the other is Students Group. Under Teachers Group, I have added a user called user-1. Under Students Group, I have added another user called user-2. Next, let us configure the Sonicwall LDAP configuration settings. I am on the Users Settings page of the Sonicwall management interface. Set the user authentication method to LDAP plus local users. Click on Configure. Under Name or IP, enter the IP address of the Windows AD server. Keep the port number as 636. Select the Login Name radio button and enter the display name of the user we created in the Windows AD server, Sonic space user, and enter the password for this user. Enable the checkbox Use TLS and disable all other checkboxes. Click on the Directory tab. Under Primary Domain, enter the domain name of the Windows AD server. Click OK when prompted to update the remaining fields. Click on Apply to save the settings Under the Test tab, enter the username and password of our domain user and click on Test. If the configuration made here is correct, it will display the details of the domain user. Let us now import the user groups into the Sonicwall so we can assign them CFS policies. On the Users Local Groups page, click on Import from LDAP and select Teachers Group and Students Group and click on Save Selected. Click on the Edit button of Teachers Group. In the CFS Policy tab, select Teachers Policy under Policy. Now edit Students Group and select Students Policy in the CFS Policy tab. Now that we have configured the CFS policies and set up LDAP authentication, we need to make Sonicwall prompt for authentication when a user tries to go online. Go to the Firewall Access Rules page. Set the view to Matrix. In the matrix, select LAN to WAN. By default, all traffic from LAN to WAN is allowed for all users. We must create rules above this default rule to make the Sonicwall prompt for authentication. Click on the Add button to open the Add Rule window. From the drop-down under Service, click on Create New Group. Enter a name for this group. Let's call it Web Services. From the left side, select HTTP and HTTPS and add them to the group. Click on OK. Set the source and destination as any. Under Users Included, select Trusted Users. Click on Add to create this rule. Now change this rule to create another rule. Change the service to DNS and change the Users Included to All. Now go to the Zones page. Before we test our configuration, make sure CFS is enabled on zones. By default, CFS is enabled on the LAN zone. Let us now test our setup. I have logged into a host in the LAN zone of the Sonicwall. Let me try to go to a website. You can see I'm being prompted to authenticate. I enter the user created under the Teachers group. You can see the blocked message with the name of the policy and the category of the website I tried to access. Let me try to go to Dell.com. It is allowed. Now let me try to go to Yahoo Mail and I'm blocked. I log out from this user and I will try to access the Stanford web page, which comes under Education category. I log in as the user in the Students group and I'm allowed. Let me try to access Google Webmail by typing gmail.com. You can see the page was redirected to https://mail.google.com and has failed. When CFS blocks HTTPS websites, it does not display a block page. This concludes this video on how to configure CFS with LDAP authentication.